Hello and welcome to our 7th video on the series discussing property development. After a few months of successful due diligence, the next step will be to create a formal application. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the town planning permit application process. Now, whilst each application is quite different, a majority of multi-unit development applications in Victoria will be processed with regard to prescribed criteria. Your first step is to engage a representative who will act on your behalf to communicate with council. This is usually undertaken by an experienced draftsperson, architect, or your own town planner. They will prepare for what is known as the preliminary planning meeting. After completing an accurate due diligence, the next step is to establish if authorities are likely to be supportive of the application. Some preliminary drawings created by your architect or draftsperson should be sketched in preparation for a preliminary meeting with planning officers at the local council. In most cases, there is no requirement to have a survey completed. If the meeting is successful, you can continue to the next step. Alternatively, in the event the application is likely to be rejected, you'll need to make an important decision. Should you risk an application and potentially challenge the decision at VCAT? In some cases, the planning officer at council will provide feedback about your proposal during the meeting. In other cases, you'll receive a formal response in writing. In this slide, we can view a written response discussing a 4-unit proposal in Heatherton. Your next step in the town planning permit application process will be the formal application itself. Site surveys will have been completed and your architect or draftsperson would have undertaken hours of work to prepare the required documentation. The items listed on this slide generally take between 2 to 4 months to prepare. Keep in mind, it often takes about 1 month to receive completed survey information. Most application forms can be completed online, often by the owner or the representative. You should be aware that in most cases, planning officers at council will only discuss the application with the person nominated as the applicant. Here we have an example of a site feature and re-establishment survey. Such plans will show levels, the location of buildings, the location of easements, and a long list of other permanent fixtures. On this slide, we can see an example of a plan that reflects the site as it is in its current form. You will note that these plans clearly identify the location of buildings, existing vegetation, and setback measurements. The area schedule tells us that the existing home is 129 square metres on an allotment of some 752.88 square metres. In this example, the ground floor plan reflects a proposal for 4 new dwellings. The dotted areas over the plan reflect the location of the upper level. The location of rooms, doors, windows and staircases are incorporated into the plan. Externally, we can see the location of driveways, paths, fences and private outdoor spaces. The schedule to the right-hand side provides information to the size of each proposed dwelling. The upper floor plan in this example identifies the location of bedrooms, bathrooms and staircase. We can also see a roof line of the ground level with arrows used to describe the pitch of that roof. On this slide, we can view the elevations of the proposed dwellings, including information about ceiling heights, roof designs and external textures and finishes. We can also gain an understanding of how the units will look when viewed from both the north, east, south and west. Our shadow plan example reflects how shadows can be cast at various times of the day. Here we can see the impacts to the neighbouring homes at both 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. The landscape plan is often prepared by a qualified third-party representative and accurately shows the location of proposed trees, plants, shrubs, pathways, driveways, decking, fencing, rainwater tanks, retaining walls and more. The planning schedule details the number of trees that will be planted together with their pot sizes and species. TPZs, or tree protection zones, are often shown on the landscaping plan. In conjunction with the various drawings, the town planning application includes a detailed report about the proposal and how that proposal meets the planning guidelines. You can see in this slide the detail that is simply required. The planning permit application. Well, copies of the plans are submitted to the local council who will process the documentation and allocate the application to the planning officer. The officer is required to respond to the applicant within 28 days, at which time it's common for the officer to request further information. It's also common for an officer to request a meeting with the applicant to discuss the proposal. In many cases, the officer will request changes be made to the plans. Should the town planning officer be dissatisfied with the proposal, the officer will notify the applicant that a notice of refusal will be issued. If the application is supported by council, the next step is for the applicant to place a planning permit notice on the perimeter of the property for a period of 14 days. That's in most cases. This process is often referred to as the advertising period. letters will also be sent by council to the neighbouring properties, making them aware of the application. During this period, members of the community can write to council objecting to the proposal. The council will usually wait a further week after the 14-day period to ensure all and every objection letter is received. Depending on the number and/or validity of the objections, the council planning officer will take time to determine the appropriate outcome. There are generally 3 options that are available. Number 1, if council support the application and there are no objections, a town planning permit for the proposed development will be awarded to the applicant. The scenario 2 could be council support the application, yet we have a small number of objections. In such instance, a notice of decision will be issued. And in this event, a letter will be sent to objectors, allowing them 14 to 21 days in which they can make an application to VCAT. Scenario 3, well, it's simple. Council officers may decide to reject the application. An officer may reject an application even when no objection letters are received during the advertised period. In this case, council officers will issue a notice of refusal to the applicant. Here we have an example of a notice of decision. It should be noted that whilst it's highly likely that a permit will be issued, it's certainly not assured. Objectors to your proposal may put up a fight, resulting in time delays and a hearing at VCAT. One of the most satisfying steps in the town planning process is when you received your permit. But before celebrating, ensure you read every condition on the document. Conditions may require that substantial changes are made to the design, or that your development requires additional infrastructure to be incorporated into the construction phase, adding thousands to future costs. The town planning permit process generally takes between 3 to 9 months, depending on the numbers of objections and the speed of the relevant authorities. VCAT appeals will often extend the process well beyond that 3 to 9 month period. Just be aware of that. Once issued, the town planning permit outlines a number of conditions. The plans provided during the application stage must be amended to reflect the conditions of the permit, commonly referred to as Condition 1. Once the plans are amended and approved, they will be stamped by the town planning officer. The final stage in the town planning approval process is in receiving the approved endorsed plans. A cover letter will usually be provided together with the stamped plans. In this image, we can see the official stamp of approval from council. You should keep in mind that in some cases it can take several months to receive stamped plans from council. It's often a frustrating wait. The conditions on the permit should be read carefully and each condition must be satisfied. For the majority of developments in Victoria, the permit usually states that the project must be started within 2 years and completed within 4 years, based on the date of which the permit was issued. It's important to recognise that planning permits have expiry dates. However, extensions to time are easily sought in most instances. The cost for extending a permit is generally only a couple of $100. As I stated here, you have up to 6 months from the expiry date to request an extension of time to this permit. If the application is refused, you may decide to appeal the decision to VCAT or simply withdraw your application. Making design changes and relodging to council is also another option. A different council officer may have an alternative view or interpretation of the plans. This is a far more cost-effective option than to having the matter decided at VCAT. Further information has been compiled for you and is available for free. If you'd like a copy of this publication, simply write or phone us today. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to find out more, visit melbournepropertytalk.com.au.